So today I want to talk about autism, neurodivergence, and ADHD. I feel like it's not. I feel like I give a lot of attention to emotional states and I don't know, kind of internal things happening, and I want to connect the dots more with bigger picture thinking. And I don't know what I don't know how to say this, but I think I just need to just speak. Um, so there's this thing with being neurodivergent, and we'll just say having autism or ADHD or both or something adjacent. And the self esteem that comes not just with that, but just from life in general. Um, if someone has experienced PTSD or complex childhood trauma, if they've had emotional abuse and neglect, or abandonment, or even if they just have an insecure attachment style because of maybe just a well-intentioned parent who just wasn't able to fully attend to their kid. It could just be something as simple as that, and that's not a trauma in the usual sense, but it still has that impact. So um, you throw that in with neurodivergence, and you get something that is, I think, um, unique. You get this overfixation tendency that neurodivergence brings, combined with this emotional ballast of deep insecurity and fear and anxiety um, that anyone would have, regardless of their neurology or not. That's just from having those experiences. You put them both together, and you get something I think that's kind of unique, and um, it creates this mechanism where you shit. I'm catching myself because this is not going in the direction that I feel like it needs to. So I'm going to listen to that and just sense where that's trying to take me. So immediately I'm feeling anxiety because of just trying to start this in a certain way, trying to be um, professional or look like I have my shit together, and just feeling like if I'm in my head or just like talking vaguely or in circles, like it's just it's the self-image, and it's just like trying to get this right, you know? Um, fuck. Like, what am I even trying to say? I'm trying to say something obviously because I'm here right now and I'm trying to say something. Um, and it's not this high. Um, it's not. I don't know what the fuck to say. It's not this high intellectual stuff, and that's not like what's coming out anyways. There's a relationship between emotion and cognition, and what I don't think people get about autism and ADHD and neurodivergence, I feel like it's what I don't think people get about that is there's emotion there that adds to the experience. What you see as the result of that, it's not just because a person is different, it's because there's an emotional quality too. And having the skill to negotiate that, to experience that um, without succumbing to it is hard for any person to do. And especially if you're neurodivergent or you've had certain experiences in your life. Especially if you're autistic. And I'm using the word autism here as a placeholder in some sense for a certain type of personality and cognitive style. A certain quality of overthinking and a certain sensitivity. It's not necessarily the DSM diagnosis of that, but includes that too. That's part of this whole picture. There's a need to get things right, almost by the book, but to get things right, fear of getting it wrong, a need to get it right, so it's predictability, I suppose. There's a fitting in with society that's desired, but it's not the way people usually think of it. I don't know. It feels like a fine thread of thought that I'm following, and it feels like everything outside of that is murky. So it's just, this is the way I have to communicate right now. Otherwise, it's just not going to make sense, or it's just going to be just off base. And trying to follow this thread is what makes sense. It's almost like there's a lot of gunk. There's a lot of just crap. A huge mountain of crap, and I'm just trying to pierce through that with following this thread intuitively is how I pierce through this huge mountain of crap. Emotional crap, mental debris, 1,000 worries of 1,000 different situations, and fears, anxieties, other people's crap. It's a mountain of crap. Plus low bandwidth as a baseline right now for from lack of sleep and from going on 3 years now of poor sleep. um, yeah. Anyways, not to turn this into a pity party, but this thread. Okay, so this thread, where is it going? Um, Going back to self-image, this fear of just getting this right, and I wanted to just stop this video and just redo it, start fresh. It could have been better, who knows? And I'm working through this right now. Most people have already tuned off and they're not going to listen, and that's okay. This is for me right now, not for other people. And if it helps anyone, so be it. But um, this is my therapy right now, I guess. Um, so this self-image of just saying the right things, getting this right, and what the fuck am I even trying to say? Is it going to be something useful? Is it going to be another, whatever? So you add into this whole mix of things. I just said a few things, bandwidth, mountain of crap, whatever. You add in victim mentality to this whole mix of stuff. In a sense of worthlessness, and you get more crap. But it's a weight that adds to this, and it's a significant weight. It's a significant weight. It's scary if you keep feeling like you're doing something wrong and you're getting that feedback from other people, or you're interpreting that as feedback from other people. And in some cases, it's true. You're getting negative feedback from other people because it feels so personal and it hits hard. The lens skews to seeing it more in places where it's not, because of those few situations where it was true. So it's a bias, it's fear, and it's self-reinforcing. It creates more and more of itself. And you start to see this lens everywhere. Through a lens, you see everything like this. I suck. People think I suck. Or even just, I keep fucking things up. I keep fucking things up. Here's more proof. I keep fucking things up. I keep saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing, all this bullshit. It's a continuum because, too, it's not necessarily black and white. Maybe you do something a little off, like on a scale of 1 to 10, maybe it's a 2, and your brain turns it into a 6 or a 10. And yeah, maybe you do 1 or 2 things that are like a 3 or 4, and then maybe once in a blue moon you do something that's a 6. But then your mind starts to see everything as a 6 or a 7 or an 8. And there's the whole aspect too. So that's just one part of it, but then there's this whole other part of it of where other people are seeing through a skewed lens on their end as well. And okay, so you did a 2, a social faux pas of a 2. And another person takes it to be a 6. And then you take their 6 to be an 8. So it's this whole fucking crazy cycle of just crap. And what started as a 2 got escalated into a fucking 8. That did not need to be an 8. From the dance between you and another person. So it's not all on you, it's not all on them, but it's both. And it didn't need to be. So that's a whole other thing, and that doesn't matter if you're neurotypical or not, if you're autistic or ADHD or just a regular person. It's That's just what happens for a lot of us. Um, but you put that into the mix, it creates extra things. People talk about, um, on one hand, trying to fix ADHD and autism, or at the very least, cover up the symptoms. On the other hand, people talk about seeing it as something valuable and also seeing it as part of who you are, as your identity, and not something to change, something that society should adapt to. And it's to me, it's not either or. It's well, one half of that too is the it's not just the neurology or having a different type of brain. It's all the emotional and mental crap too that has nothing to do with the neurology. It's just crap. It's just sense of worthlessness. It's adverse experiences you've had that um, seem to become part of you, and they color the way you see things. It's victim mentality. It's these are all separate things. I'm not saying this is all one thing, but um, it's but they're connected, and in a sense, they are kind of this big lump. Um, it's pain, emotional pain you've experienced. It's a lot of things, and social, emotional, psychological. You could even say spiritual. There's energy too. Energy is a real thing, and there's an energetic component to this as well. The energy people give off that you feel, and vice versa, and we all respond to it mostly unconsciously. Some people are able to respond to it consciously, and we call them psychics, and that's. Yeah. But most people, it's totally unconscious, but it's instantaneous the way people respond to energy. It's instantaneous. People just don't know it. Animals do the same thing. So all of these components add up, and yeah, you could say they co-arise, but it's not just the neurology. And so you work through the emotional crap, you work through the psychological, cognitive crap, the beliefs, the perceptions and biases that you've taken on because of your experiences. You let the past go. You heal parts of yourself, the wounds that you need to heal. You start seeing yourself in a different way. You accept yourself. You see your strengths and your weaknesses, and you learn to work with both of them. You emphasize your strengths. You find ways to work around your weaknesses, and you associate with people differently. You don't take on their crap. You don't project your crap. You take people as they are and figure out a way to navigate their thorns and appreciate what you appreciate, and keep it simple. And you communicate. You learn how to communicate better, how to voice when something's off, and you just say it instead of letting it bottle up. And you learn to say it more skillfully, with owning your emotions and owning your triggers, not projecting them, and negotiating. And you just learn how to do that. And even if it's exhausting, you learn how to do that, because honestly, it's exhausting for every single person. And you learn how to navigate your own bandwidth. You don't do things that require too much cost to your energy when your bandwidth doesn't have enough to support that. So you say no to things when you have to say no to things. So, it's these, you could say, life skills that you learn, and also life healing, letting go of the crap from the past, healing, changing your mindset. So so those things on their own kind of resolve most of the issues that someone having autism and ADHD would experience. And I can hear the angry voices saying that's not true, and I'm gonna say, fuck you. Get the fuck away from me. I'm gonna give that a voice, and I'm also gonna say, okay, I hear you. I hear you. Yes, you feel invalidated. And it's hard. Yes, it's hard. It sucks. It fucking sucks. It sucks. And you know what? Okay. We take for granted where we are in this life. We take for granted a lot, I think, to an extreme degree, that none of this is guaranteed. We take for granted that people used to throw their babies into a pit back in ancient Greece. The Spartans. Babies that they considered to be defective, they just tossed into a pit and they died. The world is not perfect. A lot of us feel to some extent something's off. I've lost most people already. If you've still been watching because you felt sorry for me, or because you sense that there's some kind of message that is trying to come out, even though it's hard to come out, I've lost most of you at this point. But to those who've stuck around, we take a lot of this for granted. All of this technology, everything that we have, our clothing, our food, the rights that we have, whether or not those are getting threatened, just the very fact that we have them and have had them to some degree, it says a lot. And with all the injustice that we've experienced as a society, and with different groups that have been marginalized and everything, take a look at medieval Europe, and take a look at the ancient world, and we've gone through cycles of, to some degree, relatively more rights than others, and certain periods where there's been more, you could say, social freedoms, and then less freedoms. So it's been cycles, and it's been ebbs and flows. But at the same time, we've always had some kind of issue with hierarchy and power inequities, and there's always been some group that's been oppressed or marginalized for most of our history. And even when that hasn't been fully the case, and I doubt it's never been not fully the case, even, you could say, even between groups, even between different tribes. So that it's always been an issue with us. And you add to that the very fact of how difficult life has been for most of us throughout history with trying to survive. Everything's a double-edged sword, and I know there's a silver lining to that too. Probably it created probably a sense of closeness, community. It probably created a sense of deeper connection with nature. There are silver linings to that I think we long for, some of us. To return to the point, we take a lot of this for granted. We have a lot of gifts in this society, in this way of living, and we sort of demand that we have more. Or we take it personally if we don't. I think there's a whole mindset around that, and nothing is ever guaranteed except for our own death, which is just, it's a cliche to say it, but it is true. But nothing is guaranteed. And it gives more reason to be grateful for what we do have when we have it. Which doesn't mean that we can't and shouldn't strive for more if it feels authentic to do so. If we're not doing it for other people, but if we're truly doing it because that's what feels right to us, or if we're not doing it for approval and status, we're doing it because something inside us is moving us to do that naturally. Absolutely, follow that. And appreciate what we do have when we have it, whether or not it's perfect. The fact that we have phones, the fact that we have technology, which is a huge double-edged sword. And it's also up to us how we use it. The fact that we have clothing. Even though food is hard to get, I know for a lot of people, if you know where to look, there's still a lot of food available. More so than in other times in history. It's just really a cursory glance through history that shows us how difficult life has been for us as a species. Obviously, we've adapted, and obviously we found joy and creativity and culture through all that, and it hasn't held us back. It hasn't broken us, because we're still here. It's made us in a lot of ways stronger because we've adapted and we've continued to evolve until we got to this point. But it's not the end, obviously, or it shouldn't be the end, because there's more ways we can evolve. Obviously, it's both can be true. So, God, and that's a fucking heavy thing, because we could risk losing all of this. And we might not. And there might still be possibilities for different paths as a species we can go down. A lot of us are afraid that there's greater threats to our planet, to us as a species. Obviously to other species too. And it's a huge responsibility. And the people in power are not worthy of wielding that. They're not capable of wielding that responsibly. They're capable of keeping things to a relative stability. That's what they're good at. I've realized the epitome of our civilization right now, the leaders in our civilization, the epitome is achieving relative stability, even instability within that broader stability, which is still tenuous. It's not exactly like they're. I think we're all afraid that it's not, even that's not enough. But it's what we're good at as a society right now. It's stabilization. whether it's in mental health, it's stabilizing the patient, or it's business, stabilizing profits, or stabilizing a product, or government, or whatever. I use that term loosely, but we know stabilization isn't enough. It's what we call stabilization is really just suppression of symptoms. It's not actually fixing the problem. So it gets us to a place where things can keep moving, where the system can keep running. That's what it does. The system is maintaining itself, and we all have this sense that I think we all want something different, while at the same time being terrified of what that actually means. Because if we want something that's actually fundamentally different and not just a change in symptoms, it means something completely different. It means we have to drop what's comfortable to us. We have to fully let it go and be fully open to what is next. And most people are not ready for that and do not want that. It doesn't matter what they say. Most people do not want that. I don't care what side they're on, or political affiliation, or religion, or whatever. Most people do not want that. And David Bowie says it well in The Last Temptation of Christ, as Pontius Pilate. He says, whether it comes from love or it comes from hate, people don't want change. So we all want the symptoms to change, but we don't want to actually fix what's at the root of it. This went in a whole other direction than I thought. At the individual level, this is true. And it's just as true at the social level. We all have a problem we want to change on the individual level. And just talking with myself here, I keep saying I want to change. I keep saying that I want to just give everything up and go travel. Not really just to travel, but to be in a place of surrender where I can just be totally open. But the fear kicks in of being homeless and starving or being completely alone. And it stops me from doing that. Maybe that's not the only solution. I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying dropping everything and just going to another country in itself solves everything. It just puts me in a place where I can, I think more clearly, or just think without all the influences around me telling me what I should and shouldn't do. Which they mean well, and it's not like some of it's necessarily bad, but where I want to go has to come from me. And I've taken a lot of information in from a lot of different sources, and the only way to sort through that effectively is just to stop any more information from coming through so I can just sort out what's already there. And maybe that's a bit of a rationalization of just an emotional need to just be by myself in some degrees, or just be in a fresh place where I can just look at things from a fresh perspective. Um, or maybe it's just an emotional need that feels overwhelmed and just wants to just quiet things down, cut out the noise, or something. Maybe it's something else. I don't think it's wrong, and I don't know if it's the full picture. Either way, taking that first step is everything, because if I don't, then everything just spins. Things spin. My head is looking for answers, like, okay, well, what do I do now? How do I do this? And then it's, it does start taking in everything, and it's too much, and it's not effective. And it might do a little thing here and a little thing there and a little thing here and a little thing there, and then get sucked back into this whole fucking cycle. And there's anger there because it happens so quickly and easily. There's probably anger at myself for allowing this to happen. There has to be some compassion for myself too, because I know how I work. Other people don't know how I work, but I know how I work. And they might know how I work to some degree, but they don't know how I work the way I know how. They don't know how I work. I know how I work. And I have to have, there's a little pride in that, in saying that. And maybe there shouldn't be, but maybe that's okay too, because I know how I work, and it's okay to say that. I am afraid of fooling myself with my own bullshit, because it has happened, and I know it can still happen, and it does still happen, obviously, but sometimes that is also a trap. Overthinking about falling into the trap is a trap. And having silence, having stillness, disconnected from everything, is 100% what I need sometimes to think clearly, to sort my own emotions out, to sort everything else out. It is what I need for myself. And having extra people, other people tell me what I need to do, what I should do, getting information in, getting pulled in different directions, it makes me pissed off. They're doing what they're doing because they are trying to help, or they're needing help, either or. There's no need to blame anyone for that. And then I want to blame myself for letting myself get sucked in, pulled into that, or even being too submissive. And I need to have compassion for myself too, because if I'm getting pulled in, it means I'm trying to help. It means I'm trying to be a good friend. I'm trying to be there for someone. Even when I'm feeling like I'm off, even when I'm feeling like I don't quite have the capacity for this, or I have a little bit of capacity, I can only do this much, but then I end up doing this much, I'm still trying to be a good person or a good friend, or I feel how someone is and I'm trying to help. So I can't hate myself for that. And if it feels inauthentic, sometimes it is because I'm pushing myself more than I need to. And it's not because I'm a bad friend. It's not because of whatever. It's just because I need to take care of myself. And at this, maybe, at a certain place and time, like right now, maybe I can only help to a certain extent with a certain amount of people. And that's it for right now. Because if I try to do more than that, I won't be able to help anyone else after this, because I'll be fucking. Um, it'll be too much. Something's gonna crash. Something has crashed, and it's gonna crash more if I keep going in this direction. And ultimately it's no one's fault. It's a pattern. This is what's happening. It's guilt, shame. Um, it's a dance. It's like maybe in some situations when someone's calling on me to help them and they're desperate, it's an opportunity. It's a chance for them to go in a different direction or realize that they do have what it takes. So not trying to swoop in and save someone gives someone else the chance to realize they have what it takes. And sometimes that's what I needed. I did not need there's anger here and I'm just going to let it out. There were times when I did not need someone to swoop in and save me, even when I was asking for it. I needed someone to just affirm to me, you've got this, I see you, you have what it takes. Trust yourself, and just kind of back off and just let me do it. And there's no blame, because again, it's like you're just trying to help someone. You feel bad for them. You're trying to be a good friend. You're trying to do what feels right. You're trying to do what you think is right. So it's not something to hit yourself over the head with. It's definitely not something to hate yourself for. And yeah, having boundaries, communicating those boundaries is key. And honestly, sometimes too, you can't communicate boundaries all the time in complex situations. So sometimes you just have to just completely disconnect from the whole thing to give yourself space. Because then you can think more clearly. You can sort out what needs to be sorted out. And you cannot do that effectively when you're in it, when all this stuff is happening all at the same time. You can't. You can in small ways to some degree. It's too much. It's just too much. So the other side of this, the flip side of the coin too, is when other people are trying to swoop in and help you, save you on the extreme end, or tell you what to do, or give you advice, or or whatever on the lighter end of it. But in that case, the problem still isn't necessarily. Sometimes you do need to hear something over and over again if it's not clicking. And there are practical things you need to do that. Sometimes people are giving you a push in that direction, so you do it and you don't overthink it, and you don't wallow, I guess. At times the right thing said at the right time in the right context is exactly what you need. And it's important to tell the difference, because when it's in that case, it's almost like it's out of nowhere. And it's almost like when the person says it, it's almost like something comes over them, or it's like it's an intuitive thing, and they say it, and they might forget later that they even said it. Or if they say it, it's like almost like you can just kind of tell, you can see or feel that there's a difference in quality to it. It's it's not from their head or from the ego, it's from a different place. And there's not fear behind it. It's as much as there's not fear behind it, and it's like the universe is speaking through them, basically. And the timing is perfect. Not because it's something that you have to orchestrate. It's not something that the mind does. It's part of the moment it comes through. So if someone is trying to control the situation and they're coming from fear, it's not going to be as good advice as when it's coming from a different place. When it's in tune, you could say. And I'm reflecting on this as it relates to myself and this fear of getting it wrong, of saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing. I think there's this whole other category of being the wrong thing. I'm going to put that on a shelf for right now because I think that's a whole topic on its own. But saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing, which relates to this, because in a sense, in my experience, I know the friction that comes from being out of tune, out of alignment. There's a little cockiness to that as I say it. But it's an entirely different experience almost. It's like you go into the store in a place of flow or alignment. It's like people just walk out of your way. Everything just flows. There's no friction, there's no frustration. And I say it's this dance because it is partly where you're coming from. It's how you're viewing things, it's how you're feeling, and reality is responding to it in the moment, and I think in a longer term sense, in a ripple effect sense too. But then there's the other dance of, I don't know how to say it. There seem to be these alignments of, I don't know, it's going to sound ridiculous, I think, saying it. Vadim Zeland, even Neville Goddard to an extent, call this like these like timelines that you're shifting into. That in a sense you're in a different timeline or a different trajectory or lifeline. If you change your focus, your energy, your thinking, you move into a different trajectory of reality. And I think that's true, but I don't know if it's true that those things exist ontologically in their own separate space. I don't know if that's true, but it feels true, and it seems to be true in your experience, that things can really shift so much that it feels like people respond dramatically differently. I don't know if there's a way to know that for sure, and there probably isn't. But the point is, it feels like a dance because the rhythm feels like a dance. The energy exchange feels like a dance. It feels like as long as you're dancing with the universe, as long as you're in this engagement with it, that's both in tune to it and responding to it moment by moment, sort of. It's like you're present with it and you're responding to it organically, spontaneously, almost lovingly, and you're open, and you're not restricted by beliefs. You're not restricted by beliefs about yourself, about society, about people, or about how reality works. You're not restricted by those things. It loosens, and it's a gradual loosening, and it's, it's by degrees, um, but it loosens, and so it allows you, enables you to respond, engage, be present in a different way. And you see in real time evidence every single day that reality responds to that and is dancing with you. And it feels like a dance because when you make what feels like a misstep, when it's like out of alignment, when it's coming from your ego or your head or your fear, when you're doing something to try to control things or doing something out of like an old habit, reality gives you that feedback, like something gets a little off. It starts feeling restricted again. People sense it, again, unconsciously. Like you see it in very visible time, like just like a simple example with the grocery store. Instead of people walking out of your way, they actually move in your way at the exact moment that you're going in a certain direction. Someone just comes out of nowhere and just stands in your way, literally. There's a lot of examples I can give, and that's a different video or conversation. But just that principle, you see it in real time when something is off, when you make what feels like a misstep, reality responds. And then when you get back into alignment, there's that flow again, and it feels more open again, and it feels different, it feels better. And people talk about frequencies, and that's just another language, I think, for looking at this whole situation. They talk about lower frequencies, lower densities, 3D consciousness. To me, the way I translate it, it's just a consciousness of being restricted, coming from the ego, coming from the head, being out of alignment, which just means, just out of alignment. You could say the head and the unconscious not being connected, not being aligned. And then there are these degrees of this loosening up, and people will just say, oh, your frequency is rising, or you're moving from 3D to 4D to 5D. It's just different languages for the same thing. And when you get to this, the more and more it loosens and the more and more it opens up, in a sense, it does feel lighter, almost physically lighter. The quality, almost of the air, feels different. Everything feels lighter. It's like you move much more gracefully. You speak more gracefully. Things are different. You even, physically, it seems like you even change your appearance in some ways, in some degrees, where you look different. And people comment on that. And you get sick less. Your body is responding differently. Opportunities show up much more easily. Intentions manifest much more quickly, and very specifically too. And it's just a different experience of reality, even though in a sense it is kind of all still the same. And I think this kind of situation is happening all the time in a way, but it does feel different. So, got 2 minutes left. How does this loop all the way back around to autism and ADHD and all this stuff? So, in my experience, that is how you navigate this. It's how anyone navigates life, but for someone with autism and ADHD, or just who's neurodivergent, it's the magic bullet for finding flow where everything has felt so constricted, whether it's through diffusion of attention or like just being completely scatterbrained and just everywhere, and feeling just lack of focus, or just having a hard time keeping up. Really, that's what it comes down to with ADHD. It's having a hard time keeping up with everything and like all the things going on around you and the demands that seem to be placed on you. And then with autism, it's this kind of sense of restriction that you're constantly working with. And society's demands for you to be more flexible, which often tends to feel like it comes from more of an ego place than a true need for that. Versus when you actually do need to be flexible because that's what the situation, what life is calling on you for. So that constant navigation, but feeling constantly restricted, this sense of alignment, this way of seeing things, it's not just how a regular person navigates life, it's, I think, kind of the key to navigating being neurodivergent. So, and part of that includes letting the past go, working through healing, psychological trauma,